Hey guys, welcome back to another Reddit Stories video. Today we are checking out some creepy and spine-chilling stories from Reddit. These are some of the best ones I have found, and I know you are going to enjoy them as much as I do. These stories are great to listen to while relaxing, studying, or even getting ready for bed. I am so glad you are here to join me for this. Before we start, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps out, and I would love to have you as part of the community. All right, let us get into it. Here are some chilling Reddit stories. And first up, I've worked as a crime scene investigator for 25 years. This is my weirdest case. On the 25th of November 2018, the victim pulled into a budget motel in the early hours of the morning. He booked room 12 for a 3-day stay, and on the 4th day, the owner of the establishment sent his son to check on the victim. What he found was something that someone his age should never have witnessed, or anyone for that matter. By the time I arrived at the scene, it had already been cordoned off. Members of the county police department had swarmed the area, and in the absence of the sun, it was the blue and red flashing lights that cast their glow over the building. I made my way past the tenants, who were half asleep, doing their best at giving witness testimony. I stepped by a particularly shaken forensic pathologist who was trying to call his mother and entered room 12. Now, I've been working as a crime scene investigator for more than 20 years. I have dealt with some truly confounding scenes before. In 2006, a body of a missing hiker was found in the woods just on the county line. It had been burnt to a crisp, but only the upper half. Below the waist was completely untouched, as was the surrounding area. And so I received lots of information from a couple different people regarding this one guy, and that was the impression that I had. More recently, a farmer reported a break-in just after New Year's Eve. Presumably, someone had broken into his warehouse, which housed an industrial animal carcass shredder. It had been used in the night, and a pile of jellied flesh was found clumped at its mouth. Horrifically, it was eventually proven to be human, although couldn't be identified beyond that. Only one other thing was found at the scene. Within the remains was a small steel plaque, about the size of a business card, with the number 0002916 engraved in it. I say all this for simple context. I am no stranger to the unexplainable, but what I saw in room 12, it still keeps me up at night. The following are excerpts from the crime scene report I filed that day. Incident number 240711. Date of incident, November 29th, 2018. Time of arrival, 11:54 p.m. Location, room 12, Sir Sleep-A-Lot Motel, County Reporting Officer, Detective Sir John Rownick. Incident number 17. Time of arrival, USA. Reporting Officer, invited, HMODD. Victim name, John Doe. Name yet to be confirmed through fingerprint or DNA. Gender, male. Age, estimated to be mid-40s. Occupation, unknown. Suspects, none at present checked into the Sir Sleep-A-Lot Motel on the morning of November 25th, 2018. He informed the motel owner, Mr. John K., that he would be staying for 3 days. No known associates or visitors during the stay. Jim K. claims he spent the first night in the motel, and the 2 days after visiting the stay, he would leave at the same time through the same entrance each day. He informed the motel owner, Mr. John K., that he would be staying for 3 days. No known associates, none at present during the stay. Victim was found laying on bed in supine position. Victim had skin removed crudely. Patches of flesh hang loosely, revealing bone in some areas. Teeth indents on right part of pelvic bone will be examined. The victim's head is absent from the scene. Notably, the body had been dressed in what appeared to be women's undergarments, specifically a pair of lace stockings and a torn satin slip. Neither items of clothing belonged to the victim. The body was likely dressed post-mortem. Addendum. Marks on the right part of pelvic bone were positively identified as being from a human juvenile, estimated as between the ages of 3 and 6. No dental record had been traced. Blood covers every inch of the room's 4 walls and carpet. The blood spray appears to be inconsistent with splatter from traumatic injury, possible use of pressurized device. The amount of blood was determined to be approximately 2 gallons, or 135% of the victim's total volume. Teeth were found on the room's desk, 33 in total, arranged into a circular pattern 10 inches in diameter. Their careful arrangement appears to be ritualistic. The teeth are currently assumed to have been belonging to the victim. The location of the victim's head has not been identified. Addendum. The findings of the forensic odontologist have determined that 32 of the 33 teeth belong to a person matching the victim's description, a Caucasian male in his 40s. One of the teeth matches a younger Caucasian female. It was eventually connected through dental records to be from 24-year-old traveler Hadlin, reported missing in 1997. The Hadlin case was archived in 1999 due to absence of evidence. His victim's tongue was discovered in the bathroom sink, exhibiting a complete severance at the base. The incision appeared clean and precise, suggesting the use of a surgical grade or extremely sharp cutting instrument. Notably, the tongue was found in isolation within the sink, devoid of any other biological material, indicating that it may have been intentionally relocated post-excision. First responders noted signs of tampering on the coin-operated television in the room, which intermittently activated to static approximately once an hour. The television would be deconstructed for forensic examination to recover latent fingerprints and other trace evidence related to its manipulation. Addendum. Both of the victim's eyes were recovered from the interior of the room's coin-operated television. The television screen had been removed and the eyes were placed within the cavity where the cathode ray tube was situated. This positioning suggests deliberate placement, indicating a possible symbolic motive. The only item of clothing found at the scene belonging to the victim was one pair of denim jeans, which witness John K. recalls being worn by the victim the morning he checked in. The jeans were contaminated with the victim's blood. In the pockets were found a one-way bus ticket, one packet of apple-flavored gum, and a button. No other possessions of the victim were found. A pair of small, leather lace-up shoes were found at the foot of the bed. From the lack of blood stains, we can assume the shoes were placed there after the homicide. Addendum A. A shirt likely belonging to the victim was found 3 weeks later, partially buried in a field in redacted Arizona, small town 240 miles south of the crime scene. The shirt matched the description given by John K. of the victim. Blood samples taken from the shirt were a strong match to those taken from the crime scene, although without the identity of the victim, a definitive link is challenging to corroborate. Addendum B. The small shoes found at the crime scene were dated to 1909 and determined to have some value among antique dealers. Due to their small size, they can be assumed to be children's shoes. The room showed no obvious signs of damage. The furniture appeared to have been undisturbed, although a Bible was missing from the bedside cabinet. Neither John K. nor his son David, lead witnesses of the case, recall seeing the victim with any luggage. For this reason, it is unclear if his possessions were taken or if he simply had none to begin with. The motive of this homicide remains unclear. If special consideration is wanted, I'll save you the rest of the procedural formalities. I've lost track of how many nights I've spent awake, staring at my computer screen, reading and rereading this report. It stayed with me for the past 6 years, constantly at the back of mind. At my personal behest, the case remained open, despite insufficient evidence and a complete lack of any leads. When it was finally shelved at the beginning of this year, they were no closer to solving it than we were the day we found him. Earlier this week, I learned that it had been reopened by the FBI. I assumed that there must be someone else in this department who felt the same way about the case as I did, strong enough to reach out and request assistance from the feds. I was tasked with compiling any and all digital evidence we had on the case onto a USB flash. I felt weird combing through all the reports, files, and forensics. It felt like I was visiting an old friend. I added the documents I wrote up on the day, the dozens of crime scene photos and witness statements. I've studied them all meticulously myself. I doubted some Yale boy with a corner office could do any better, and I kept trailing through the earmarked files, checking and double-checking if there was anything I'd missed. It was dark now. I spent the day working from home, hunched over my computer in my sorry excuse for a library. That's what my job mostly consists of now. I couldn't wait for retirement. Maybe then I would have the time to read some of these books I have lying around. Decided I was finished for the night. I'd squeezed every piece of relevant information I could find onto that hard drive. It was up to the FBI now. I only hoped that if our victim left any family behind, they could one day get some closure from this. I was about to shut my computer down when something caught my eye. Witness _ 1 minute of 3. It was an audio file. Somehow I hadn't noticed it before. Hell, I don't think I had even listened to it before. To my knowledge, all the witness statements taken that night were written. I clicked on it, figuring it must have been taken from David K., the kid who'd found the body. I took a sip of my last dregs of coffee and sat back in my chair, jacking up the volume. The audio wasn't the best quality. It was shrouded in the static of an analog recording, and to my shock, the supposed first witness had a woman's voice. The following is a transcript of what was on that file. First responder: what were you doing in the area before you discovered the body? Witness 1: I'm staying in room 14, the room next door to where it happened. Been there for the past 2 weeks, thereabouts. I've come on hard times recently, you know how it is. I was living out of a van until this, but it wasn't exactly reliable. First responder: no, apologies, ma'am. I meant, what were you doing immediately before discovering the body? Witness 1, First responder: can you describe how and when you found the body? Witness 1: gee, it must have been around 10. I was turning in for the night when I heard a banging noise from next door. I guess he must have brought a lady friend over, so I tried my best to ignore it, but it kept getting louder. It didn't sound like a headboard neither, more like someone chopping wood. It was too much for me to ignore, so I got up to go complain. I found the door unlocked and it opened wide up when I knocked. That's when I saw him, that poor man. First responder: could you please describe the scene you came across as detailed as you can? It's Witness 1. It was terrible, just terrible. I saw my neighbor kneeling in the corner of his room. His head had been cut off. Can you imagine that? There was blood covering everything around him. I almost vomited there and then. Then I saw the man in the bathroom. There's a pause. First responder: could you please go on? You said there was someone else at the scene. Witness 1: yeah, real weirdo. I didn't notice him at first. He was just peeking out from behind the bathroom door, watching me. When I did finally notice him, we just stared at each other for a moment or two. Then he just strolled out from his little hiding place. Another pause. First responder: please continue. I assure you everything you have to say will be of some importance to our investigation. Start by describing this man you saw. Witness 1: okay then. He was a freak, I'll say it. When I got a good look at him, I saw that he had this great bulbous head. He was bald as a newborn, and the entire back part of his head was all deformed and sagging down. I think he had this disease. Oh, what's it called? The boy I went to school with had it. Like, first responder: are you thinking of hydrocephalus? Witness 1: yes, that's it, hydrocephalus. But it was much worse than that kid I knew. Sorry if I'm coming across as rude, but it looked like some horrible octopus, and the front part of his head was far too thin. He has this pointy chin and cheekbones. His eyes were as bulging as his skull, all yellow and white. I think he had cataracts.
And he must have been around 7 feet tall at least. He was hunching over where he met the ceiling. First responder: can you describe what he was wearing? Witness 1: sure. He had this battered old duster coat on. It was black, but he was covered in these stitched rags of red and green. The coat hung down to the floor, but I could make out the tips of brown leather boots poking out from the hem. It even had brown patterned boots poking out from the hem. First responder: can you... Witness 1: oh, pardon my interrupting, but the man, he was holding this, well, I don't know what it was. It looked like a lobster pot with a handle and must be 24 blades sticking out of it. Knives mostly, and razor blades, axe heads, chains, that sort of stuff. Anyway, go on. First responder: right. What did you do when he came closer to you? Witness 1: well, I just ran out of the motel and down the road until I realized everything I owned was in my room. I didn't fancy having to start over from nothing for a third time. So I came back, and that's when you bumped into me. First responder media covers. Tindan jibin baru. All right, and how long was it from discovering the body until you called 911? Ooh, I didn't call 911, honey. First responder. You didn't? Witness 1. Oh no, by the time I came back from my little jog, the place was already crawling with police. I still haven't been allowed back in my room. First responder. His speech became muffled after that, until the recording was nothing but static hum that had been in the background since the beginning. After hearing this for the first time, I didn't know what to think. I just sat in my old oak chair until my wife came in to tell me that she was going to bed. I kissed her goodnight and went back to aimlessly staring at the computer screen. Eventually, I closed it and stood up. For some reason, the room smelt. I took the USB stick and left it on my desk. I left the room and locked the door behind me. I changed, washed, and climbed into bed with my wife. I kissed her on the back of her neck and tried to fall asleep. That thing that did this was still out there. But that wasn't my problem anymore.
So that was the first story, a tragic tale that reminds us how fragile life can be and how chilling fate can feel. But now let's shift gears to something that feels closer to home yet equally unsettling. Our next story begins with something as ordinary as a cup of coffee. But what happens next will make you question everything you think you know about the people around you. This story is titled, My Husband Drinks His Coffee Black. This started off just doing small things when we were dating. Honestly, it was a joke, but when I realized how easily he believed me, well, I just couldn't resist. We were drinking together one night and having the best time. The next morning, he woke up hungover. I jokingly said, "When's breakfast?" He had a confused look on his face. He said, oh, never mind. You were drunk when you said you'd make me breakfast in bed. His face changed. He was pretending to remember. I know, just let me shower quickly. He rolled out of bed and immediately got into the shower. As I heard the water running, a smile spread across my face. Then I slowly began escalating over the years. It was honestly all in good fun, I promise. Asking him why he didn't do a chore that was usually mine, reminding him of certain things he said. He went along with it every single time. I was having too much fun. I finally took it a bit further, just to see when he'd finally catch on. He came home from work one day. There was only about one glass of wine left in the bottle. It was gifted to us, nothing we'd buy ourselves. He asked, "Honey, do you mind if I finish that wine? I'm sorry, I'll get you some of your usual tomorrow." I smiled warmly. Of course, go ahead. It was exactly how I thought it would go. He poured the glass, left the empty bottle on the counter, and retreated downstairs to his office where he plays video games. About an hour went by. I knew he'd be coming upstairs for dinner soon. I took the empty wine bottle and hid it inside of a grocery bag inside the cleaning closet behind everything. As I did this, I retrieved the brand new bottle of the exact same wine and put it straight into the freezer so it would look chilled. I continued to cook dinner as usual. After about 20 minutes, I pulled the bottle out of the freezer. It was the perfect temperature. And I looked at the exact cork in the bag, and it was the perfect temperature. I opened the cork as quietly as I could, even though I knew his headset was on. Now, obviously, I knew it couldn't just be right full. That would be too obvious. I began to chug the wine straight out of the bottle, and I was definitely tipsy. Then I poured myself a glass of wine and left the bottle with about half a glass of wine on the counter, exactly where he'd left the empty bottle. I finished plating dinner and heard him come up the stairs. I became giddy. I couldn't wait to see if he would finally catch on to me. He approached me and gave me a kiss. He looked down at the wine glass in my hand, absolutely puzzled. "Did you get more wine?" "No, you asked if you could have half of what was left and left the rest for me. I wanted to leave you a little bit, though." I gestured to the almost completely empty wine bottle. "I know you had a long day at work." He was bewildered. I almost couldn't contain myself. "I swear I finished still." He trailed off, still looking at the bottle. Get, I said. He just shook his head and blinked a few times. "Nothing. I guess I did have a long day. Thank you, honey." He smiled and kissed me again. I smiled back. This is exactly what I wanted. About a month passed. I couldn't do things too closely together. That might raise suspicion, and I couldn't have that. It was early morning on Friday. He was going on a business trip today and would return home on Sunday. I made coffee for my husband every single morning. I always loved to do it for him. For as long as I've known him, he drank his coffee black, always teasing me for putting sugar in mine. I slowly dumped the vial I had hidden in my pocket into his cup of coffee and stirred it in. He came to the kitchen, grabbed the coffee from me, and gave me a big kiss. "Thanks, honey." I smiled and turned back to the coffee maker. How stupid did he think I was? I knew exactly what this business trip was. I found his dirty little messages with that woman a few months ago. He took a sip of his coffee and made a face. "Did you put sugar in this?" he asked. "Yes. Sorry, did I put too much?" I asked innocently. "I don't like sugar in my coffee." "What are you talking about? You always take a teaspoon of sugar in your coffee," I stated. "I'm sorry, let me remake it for you." I reached for the mug and he pulled it closer to himself. I did it. I think I finally drove him crazy enough to question every aspect of himself. "No, I'm sorry." He smiled, but it was fake. I smiled back as he drank the coffee. He grabbed his briefcase once he was finished, kissed me on the cheek, and said he'd see me in a couple days. I know he doesn't like his coffee sweet, but that's not my concern anymore. So, those are the stories for today. Both were fascinating in their own way, but I have to say the first one definitely had a darker and more haunting vibe. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And if you have your own story to share, you can send it to me via email. The address is in the description below. Want to hear more chilling tales? Click on the video showing on your screen now and dive into more eerie stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe and stay spooky.